I'm in charge of this experimental journey. I'm grateful for the expert assistance of Rebecca Shea, voice you hear rather regularly, and also David Epstein to make this the first class because of some family issues and travel. Before we launch into the seminar, it makes sense to make sure that all of us have at least some shared technical understanding of the Zoom technology. And Rebecca has agreed to do that for the first few minutes. And after she does that, we'll roll up our sleeves, so to speak, and begin starting with introductions and then moving into sort of a brief overview of how I've structured our experience for the semester, and with considerable optimism with regard to how much we're going to be able to learn from and with each other. So Rebecca, would you like to begin?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Rebecca Shea, and I am in the ETAP program, and I have taken a class with Hal before and love him. So I asked if I could help out so I could learn with you guys. So I'm going to give a little tutorial on Zoom, as he mentioned, and I'll kind of make it as quick and painless, hopefully, as possible. And some of you, it sounds like, might be familiar with it, so we'll just kind of zoom through, no pun intended, in terms of what is necessary. So all of you can kind of see that you have your camera and your audio on, so we're successful, step one. So I'm going to go ahead, and some of you have already checked out some of those features. So I'll move on to the next slide. And the next slide indicates that we are, in fact, recording. And so I'm going to be recording this on my actual computer. And then what I'm going to do is upload it into YouTube and then load it onto Blackboard within probably that night or within the next day. So I just hope that everybody is okay with that. It would be unlisted. No one can find it. It'll be very secure in terms of who can really access it. And we can even delete them after the class. So if pending what he'd like to do with that. So.
Well, I think it's nice for people who are looking forward to a revisiting of some of the things that were discussed, and if people are unable to meet or they join us late, it provides kind of a do-over, and I think that will be useful. But I'll reaffirm Rebecca's promise that this recording will go nowhere. It is entirely for us, and it will be deleted at the end of the semester.
Great, thank you. So the next one is, I just want to mention, there's some Zoom resources already in Blackboard, which you all have, I think, successfully found since you are all here. And so currently there's Zoom resources with 2 documents. There was a link that has a tip sheet, and then there's also a link that indicates the Tuesday class. So one of the things I've done is that the join number, the link that we'll use, will be the same one for every single class. So we're not going to be changing it every week, so that'll just simplify your lives. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes how to join. So you really only need that like 10-digit number, and then you'll be good to go. So here's the 2 resources for a quick visual in terms of that are loaded in Blackboard, so you can take a look at those. What you need for Zoom is really just a good internet connection. A lot of people use Wi-Fi, but just kind of be leery that if your Wi-Fi is a little fuzzy, it can cause some problems. Typically, you can kind of look at your own, it's not showing me right now, but near your name, at the somewhere near your name on where your visual is, you can often see the little bars, like the little Wi-Fi bars. And if it shows yellow, it usually means that connectivity is not good. So that's kind of an info for you. And really, if you can hardwire in, that's ideal. But if your connection's good, then you should be good to go. So our Zoom format's going to be for live interactive meetings, which is exactly what we're doing right now. The purpose of this is it's for groups under 100 typically. We have audio controls we can use, so you can mute yourself. I went in as the host and went ahead and muted everybody just now, but you'll kind of see by your name where you can mute or unmute yourself if you hover on the right-hand corner of your picture. We've got a camera we can use so we can see everybody. It creates a richer experience. We're going to learn how to share screen today if you haven't done that before. We're also going to utilize the chat box feature in an activity. We're going to also get into breakout rooms very quickly. And then we're not going to do instant polling, but that's something we have available for future Zoom sessions. This PowerPoint will also be loaded in Blackboard as well. So first thing I want us to do is learn who we are. So some of you have already done this and seem like you're skilled at it, but one thing I want you to do is look in the top right-hand corner of where your where your picture is, and you're gonna click on these 3 dots, and when you click on those dots, you're gonna have there these different options that come down. I'd like you to just see where you can rename yourself. If your name is as is how you want it, just for grins, go ahead and do this so you'll know how to do it. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your name, you can type your name, your first name only, however you want it to be. So just click on those dots real quick and just familiarize yourself with how to change your name if you choose to do so. Okay. So typically how you might join Zoom is through a link such as this. And again, this number, this 679 number, is going to be the same number we're going to use the entire semester. So it'll simplify your lives. And when you do that, typically a launch screen kind of opens. If you do not have a Zoom account, this is often what it's going to look like when you go to launch it. So that'll be the similar situation. I'm going to show you though how you can join differently through the website, especially if you log in. So if you want to join with a number only, which is this top, just click here and see. If you want to join with a number only, you can go ahead and look at the number that's at the bottom, and that's going to be our set number that we're going to use all the time. So what you would do is as you're looking at the website, which is on the top right corner that I've indicated, you can go ahead and click this join a meeting where I have this red arrow, and you can go ahead and just click in that, you just type in that number. It comes up just like this. You type in the meeting ID, and it's that simple. So you do not have to have a Zoom account for that. You can do it by just logging onto the website. So this is another option for you in terms of joining. When you join, you have 2 options for audio. One is phone call, and then in terms of using your phone and calling in, and one is using the computer audio. It seems like everybody in our group is using computer audio, which is great. If you were to use a phone call, this is typically gonna come up automatically. You can click and say automatically join by computer. If you're always going to be joining by your computer, then that's fine. If sometimes something's wrong with your computer audio and you need by phone, you would click this left-hand tab over here, and you'll click that you're going to join with phone, and it'll give you the number to call into. It's also included on the one-page sheet. There's a New York number. There's a bunch of numbers, but just look for the New York one. This is just a reference if anybody ever wants to check their speed of technology in terms of how fast their Wi-Fi is moving. And this is a kind of a non-example. I have this actually at work, this First Light, and it's horrible Wi-Fi. And then here's Spectrum, which is much better Wi-Fi. And so the idea is that you're supposed to have 1.5 megabytes or higher, and this one is doing great. The bottom one, the above one is terrible. But you can go to this exact website and check it just for grins. If you're seeing those yellow lines, then you'll notice that you may want to just check your speed. So a couple things, there's some folks that I work with, in terms of different ways that we can view the screen. So when somebody is screen sharing, such as I am right now, you can't see the full screen of everybody, but usually right here on the left-hand example, there's usually some sort of a banner, and a lot of times you can move that banner around. So you can practice that now with just kind of moving the banner from the right to the left or to the bottom, and it'll either be vertical or horizontal based on where you kind of move the banner around, so you can kind of see the screen. You'll also notice that at the top there's a way to do a gallery view, which is those 4 dots or boxes in a sense, and then there's one that's just a 1 box, which indicates that's just the speaker who's talking. And then you can also minimize it if you want to make it really small. So you see a small box, the 4 boxes, and the larger box. And so if you're wanting it, like if Hal's showing you something, we may want to be able to see the whole screen, so you can kind of manipulate how big you want the photos to look on your screen or not. So for Zoom resources, this is also on the tip sheet I listed in Blackboard, but there's 1-minute videos. They are literally 1 minute, and they're super easy. Hal can attest to this because he's watched a couple of them. So if you'd like to just learn a little bit more, you can go ahead and watch these videos just to give you some more insights. And so take a minute just now, and I think a lot of you already did this, but just go ahead and find these things on your banner, which is probably at the bottom of your screen, and locate the mute button on the far left, the video, which means if you need to get up and go to the restroom or something, you can go ahead and just stop the video. You can click on that to be able to stop the video if you need to. Participants, you click on that and it indicates who's in the room, and it comes up with a white banner bar that kind of lists who everybody is. You can screen share, which we're going to practice. We're also going to practice the chat. And then the leave meeting is on the right-hand side. And my example, unfortunately, says leave breakout room because I pulled that from another source. But this is where it'll say leave meeting at the end of the session. So say if the end, we keep talking and it's past 8:30 or whatever time we're supposed to be finished, a couple people want to stay on, you can individually leave the meeting and it'll go off your screen. So screen sharing. So a couple of things about that. Again, first, this is where it's located, this green little button. And an important thing to note about screen sharing is that this white box is going to come up when you try to screen share. And there's a really important feature if we show any kind of video. Well, the two things, actually, let me back up. One is you're going to give all these options. So as an example, I had my desktop open earlier, and then I also had my Google Chrome PowerPoint that was open. So it gives you two options. So in our case, it probably isn't a big deal. I typically encourage people to select their desktop because it gives you flexibility to click around if you're screen sharing and showing different things. So how that might be really helpful for you if you have different tabs open that you wanted to show us stuff. Otherwise, you could click the Google Chrome or the PowerPoint or something specific, or an article if you pulled it up, a Microsoft Word document. These things will all be listed right here so you can click a specific thing. And then the other piece is looking at the share computer sound. If we go to show videos for any reason, or if you ever use Zoom and show a video with a group and you're on Zoom, it's really important that you click the share computer sound because it just really enhances the video. And what it does is your sound basically monopolizes the rest of the other computers in a sense. And so it just makes the sound much, much better. And so let's go ahead and practice. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a second. And I'd like somebody to do, let's just have like two people practice that are maybe more novice at it, is just to do a screen share so we can see how everybody does that. So I'm now not screen sharing anymore. And if you can go ahead and have somebody just try to screen share something that's on your desktop, you literally do it for like 2 seconds. All right, Brian, thanks for trying. Thank you. So Brian, oh, this is perfect because Brian has the launch meeting. Let me open his computer. Awesome. So now, Brian, if you want to close it to stop screen sharing, there's a red box near your banner, or probably at the top, and you need to click the red box that says stop sharing. One thing that's important to know, go ahead and have somebody else screen share so they can practice, is the screen sharing, the person who's sharing the screen has to stop in order to let somebody else screen share. We have one more practice person. Somebody new? You can do it. Anybody? There we go. Daphne, thank you. Perfect. And so notice that Daphne chose the desktop, as did Brian, because you see all the tabs up here. A non-example that I'll explain from my own life is that I was doing a PowerPoint for a PD once, and I picked desktop, and my Mac, because it's synced to my iPhone, it came in and my text messages are flying in as I'm presenting. So that was my trial and error of understanding what I need to practice. So let me go back to this. Okay, so anyway, so the next thing is the chat feature. So in terms of this is a great opportunity, and Hal mentioned this earlier in the chat, if you saw that. You'll notice that on the bar, your banner bar, there's a chat and a little number. It'll kind of highlight in a sense if somebody puts a chat in there. And with the chat, you can do two things before we start that. You can chat with everyone. You'll notice there's a drop down once you click on the chat, or you can chat with specific people if you want to have a private message. So let's just take a minute right now. Everybody go ahead and practice the chat. And go ahead and in the chat box, just share 2 to 3 sentences. And this will be something that we can extract and Hal can keep for data, in terms of what are you most looking forward to for this class this semester. So just a couple sentences. Go ahead and everybody participate by sharing what their takeaway is in terms of what they're hoping to achieve, what they're looking forward to this year in this class. So I'm seeing Markel went ahead and shared. I'm sure others are writing. Megan, applying information. Organizational management, change science. And go ahead and you can read others, what they're kind of jotting down. And then while you're in there, you can notice that you can chat to everyone, or if you want to chat to a specific person, you can do that drop down where it says everyone, and you'll notice that everybody's name is listed. So while everybody's finishing up and reading the other chats, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys continue that. Al. And I'll continue on. So the next thing, make sure we're the right one here, is we're going to go into breakout rooms. And I'm only going to put you in breakout rooms for literally, just a very few minutes. We're going to keep it really short. But I just want you to have the experience of getting into a breakout room. So when you go into a breakout room, let me go back for just a second. When you go into a breakout room, you're going to be put into a breakout room. You're going to be asked to join. You just click on the join button, and then you're magically put in a small group, basically. So once we do that, you can also ask for help in the breakout room. There's an ask for help button that'll be shown on your screen on that banner bar when you are in a breakout session to do that. And then also you can chat with only the people in your breakout room when you're in the breakout room. So like you couldn't send, if Hal's in another breakout room, you can't send Hal a message. You can only message the people right in your breakout room. So we're going to go ahead and practice that. And when we do that, when I put you in breakout rooms, what I need you to do is introduce yourself, share one word that describes your summer, and we're just be in there for a couple of minutes just to kind of get to know each other. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for just a second, and I'm going to go ahead and open up breakout rooms, and I'm going to go ahead and create breakout rooms. So you'll automatically be put in there, and you can just click the join button.
Hi there.
Hello.
Okay.
Are we back in main session here? I don't know.
Yep, we're back in main session, and the way it works is that when I close the room, and I'll explain this, everybody comes back on, you have 60 seconds to either, you can click like rejoin back to the main screen, I forget what the button is you push, which you and Daphne and Megan must have done, or it'll automatically force you to go back into the main room within 1 minute.
Yeah, did that.
So the others are still chatting, and it'll push you back in here momentarily. within like probably 20 seconds. Were you guys all in one room, the three of you?
I
I'm
think
not sure if they were able to see me.
Oh, okay.
We can, or I could see you, but I couldn't hear you at all.
Oh, okay.
Now everybody's coming back.
Oh, now we're in the main session. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really short.
Yeah, it was really short. So we'll have more time to introduce ourselves. I try to keep it really short and sweet. It's just the idea that we can create small groups so we can have some discussions around the readings and such. So that was kind of the point. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and finish up. Have my PowerPoint. And so we've already done the breakout sessions, and then signing up for Zoom, just a couple last minute things. You can sign up for Zoom for free. You can use 40 minutes, I believe, up to 40 minutes of free Zoom, like all the time with a free account. Totally encourage you to use it. Super user friendly, and just really creates really good accessibility. You can also integrate it with your Outlook or Google Calendar in terms of creating meetings and stuff. The tip sheet I have kind of has a little bit of directions, but again, those little videos that it has, those 1-minute videos also have lots of information. So there's different ways you can download Zoom. You can download on your computer. It's really simple to do, and you can get updates and check for updates and such. There is a mobile app. So like last semester when we were using this in one of my classes, there is like an iPhone and Android app. So say you're like on the road and you still want to join, and you can do it from your phone or your iPad or something like that if you can't get to your computer. And really the main thing to remember about Zoom is that you just practice, you learn, and that's how you improve. So that's really the whole idea. And there's really no specific directions. I mean, there's some things you can do online to learn about it, but it's really about just kind of playing around with it. And hopefully you guys find it useful this semester. So I'm going to go ahead and exit and stop sharing, and then pass it back to Hal.
Thank you. You all can appreciate why when Rebecca offered to assist, I jumped at the opportunity. Because the Zoom technology is new to many of us, and online learning hinges in part on the technology and what we're able to do and how we act and interact along the way. So, and I should also add that as I tell you about how we're going to proceed, after we get to know each other a little better, I'll acknowledge now, again, gratitude to, Brian, you may want to mute. I'll acknowledge a debt of gratitude to to Rebecca for sharing with me the results of an online experience with a prior class last semester, which helps to explain why we have the format that we have. Well, we're going to meet face-to-face virtually nearly every time, but then also have a number of opportunities for independent learning and opportunities. So let's spend a moment getting to know each other, since powerful learning and the way that we want to have it doesn't occur among strangers. So I guess I'll start. In case you haven't been able to see by the accuracy of the screen, I'm a veteran professor. If you like synonyms, senior professor. If you like plain language, old professor. I've been at this for about 50 years. It'll be 50 years in 2020. And I'd like to believe that, that over the course of those, really 5 decades, I picked up a few things that may be useful in much the same way that those of us who spend time with Native American or First Nation communities appreciate what tribal elders do in those cultures. In contrast to many modernized Western cultural traditions, elders have special places, and it is part of the culture to have the wisdom of the elders shared with members of the nation or the tribe. And presumably, the varied experiences that I've had, and not just in higher education, may be useful to each of you and allow a kind of customized learning that you might not have with someone who's a little less senior. I should tell you that based on what I know about each of you and all of you together, you're actually quite a diverse group. And so it's important to have an inclusive framework, but not at the expense of customized learning and even personalization of all that we hope that you will garner and then be able to use at the end of the semester. I have worked in several universities. University of Washington, University of British Columbia in Canada for 5 years, University of Texas, Miami University in Ohio, University of Utah, and then came to the University at Albany in 2000. And there is some suspicion that I can't hold a job. And at the same time, I can tell you that the 20 years that I've spent at Albany are the longest I've worked anywhere. And as some of you know, I'm not often at the university. I'm usually someplace else. I'm classified and even called an outreach and engagement scholar. I work in schools and community agencies and universities and state governments in several parts of the United States and indeed a few parts of the world. And I didn't start that way. It's sort of happened in part serendipitously, in part as a function of moving so much and finding myself in a very different situation in each new setting. I didn't start out to have a joint appointment in social welfare, but when my wife and I, a social work leader, moved to the University of Utah, that's where my appointment was. I didn't plan on doing a lot of work in public health, but indeed that's what happened at Albany when granting opportunities began. I didn't plan on working in several nations around the world, but it turns out that when you do some innovative work in response to pressing social needs, people find out about you, particularly in the digital age. And in my case, the work that I do involves vulnerable people who live in vulnerable places, and with a considerable emphasis on how we think about new organizational and institutional designs that are fit for purpose. Initially, a lot of that was done in local, state, and national contexts over the last 20 years. The work has taken on an international and comparative framework, which is why, Megan, the international education management work that you're interested in suddenly corresponds with some of the work that I've been doing. Other seminars that I do involve cross-sector complex collaboration. One seminar I do is called Interprofessional Leadership for School, Family, and Community Partnerships. Daphne survived it last semester. And the main idea, of course, is that if we want diverse and specialized professionals to work together, even to collaborate, we have to prepare them together. And that whole area is called interprofessional education and training. Interprofessional education and training. And it's absolutely essential for some of the work that we're going to be talking about over the course of the semester, particularly as we begin to think about people who have to or want to or need to question the boundaries, and then work at the boundaries and cross the boundaries and bridge the boundaries. And so many of the things that we're doing in this day and age, particularly as we move from industrial age institutions to global ones, involves boundary work. And that idea of boundary crossing, bridging, stretching, expansion will be one of the themes that we have throughout the seminar. I could probably go on with regard to other things that I do. Done a lot of work with the development of cradle to career education systems. I've done some work with governmental policies for social welfare and health. I continue to offer consultations to other higher education institution leaders with regard to how colleges and universities might get redesigned. And at the same time, I'm really trying to phase into retirement without any idea as to what retirement means and entails, and with a nonstop passion for the work that I do, including the opportunities to work with you all this semester. You might call it a positive addiction. I'm going to stop there. How about if each of us in turn provides a bit about ourselves and our background? Rebecca, why don't you start, and then we'll move along the screen. Just a few moments about who you are, what your background is, and it would be nice to know what prompted you to elect our seminar, since it's not a requirement.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Rebecca, and I am, let's see. So I currently work for a company called Measurement Incorporated. It's out of Albany, and we hold contracts with New York State Education. So I do professional development type of stuff for them, and have for almost the last 5 years. Prior to that life, I was a teacher, an instructional coach, and an administrator, both assistant principal and principal at elementary schools. In a district that was in Texas, actually. So I left Texas, came here, wanted something different other than admin, and found my way to this company I currently work with. And they really advocate people getting their doctorate, and so it's a great flexible schedule to be able to do so. I took Hal's interpersonal leadership class two years ago and loved it. And the reason why I'm taking this class, in terms of, well, A, being able to offer Hal help, which I would love to do, and then B, is just because the theories of change, theories of action, I think will align with my area of research. And I really wanted to be engaged in conversation with Hal and other people to be able to see how this might fit into my area of study. I'm in the ETAP program, and I'll be implementing, hopefully, crossing my fingers, my pilot study this year. Drafting that up this semester, and hopefully be able to obtain some data in the spring. So that's kind of my hope. So that's you guys.
Thank you. Megan? You want to go, Megan?
Yep, I can go. So I'm Megan. I'm in the International Education Management and Leadership program here at Albany. I'm currently in Indiana doing an internship for education abroad. So I'm really hoping to take this seminar and kind of have that complement my international education background, and kind of see how that program and that business is developing and what change has been happening lately in it, and what I can apply from the seminar to kind of help things move along.
Great. Great. Daphne?
Hi. Well, as Hal mentioned, I have taken the interprofessional leadership class last semester, and so by virtue of that class, I'm chasing you, Professor Lawson. I will follow you until you decide to sail out into the seas and enjoy your retirement. I'm going to collect as many jewels as I possibly can to help with the work that I do in the community. I also work at the university, so just in terms of collaboration, partnerships, and making certain connections in order to push forward the agenda of helping students in this educational paradigm process that they're in the hopes that they don't slip through the cracks. So that's the purpose of why I'm here.
Super. Welcome. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for the recommendation. The check's in the mail. Markel? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did. Hi, I'm Markel. I just recently graduated with my MPA a couple of months ago, actually, but I wanted to kind of narrow down my focus into ed policy and get more on that side of things. This is actually my first online class ever, so I'm a bit nervous about the whole virtual learning thing. And
Me
I'm
too.
going. I'm sorry,
Me
what'd you say?
too.
So I'm a bit apprehensive, but I'm trying to make it work.
Well, we're gonna use group-related supports to get through all of this. And if you think it's difficult for you, imagine what it's like for me. So we'll do this solo flight in a new way. We'll do it collaboratively.
Thank you.
Brian, good to see you. You want to unmute and talk about why you would punish yourself and take another seminar with me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is new for me too, so it's been a while. I used to be in business, and we used to do meetings like this all the time. So, but I'm definitely out of practice, and I feel very awkward. So, but I'm Brian, and I'm a teacher, and I've taught for 22 years. I used to be a social studies teacher and a special ed teacher currently. And I teach in a BOCES program, and I do behavior intervention programming for students to help them with their learning at the high school level. And I've gone through the program for the educational certifications program that we have at SUNY Albany. So I have a master's degree that I received about 2 years ago. And now I have the school building administration certification, and this semester I'll finish with the district certification.
Great.
And the whole point is to move into administration. The internship is done and all that. So I've been patient the last 3 or 4 years, just getting settled for that. And what I'm trying to do is, learn from this experience with Hal, and whether, no matter which class it is, to develop more holistic thinking and how to have a whole approach towards things. And I think we've seen that, in some of the experiences that he asks of us, where I'm trying to develop a plan to intervene in special education and develop better programs and experiences for students at the middle school and high school level for their plans for their future and for everything to interconnect better. And I'm a little older, and what I would like to do is take this knowledge and experience from Hal and apply that, upon retirement as well, after getting administrative experience or continuing at being as a teacher in special ed. So I'm looking to promote, free access to new ideas and better methods in making more success stories for special ed students or students of alternative education. So that's one of my big goals. Or I can also just be a principal and just help an organization as well. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Very inspiring. Some of the folks who have talked already and who know me also know what others of you who do not know me need to know, and that is I was not born into privilege. I was a kid who beat the odds, and I've made it a life mission to try to pay it forward and provide opportunity structures for others who need educational opportunities worldwide. And who depend upon dedicated and talented and innovative educators like you all. So it's every time I talk with people who are as inspired as Brian is, I get inspired too. So thank you. Leandra.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Leandra Harris. I also work at the University at Albany in the housing department. I've worked for the department since 2003. Currently, I'm offered dissertation in the EPL program. I am currently working on a dissertation focusing on foster youth, and I'm trying to see if improvement sciences would be useful for my theoretical framework. So that's my push to be in this course. I've read some of the materials prior to this, but I definitely want to get a little bit more in-depth knowledge.
Good, wonderful. And the concern for foster youth is very, very important and well justified, particularly foster youth who enter higher education. As,
Exactly. Exactly.
the young people who are often forgotten, who need places to go when others go on vacation, who have food insecurities and financial needs. And fortunately, there is much being done, and I understand that you're a part of it in the SUNY system overall. And your leader was in the seminar last semester and spent a good deal of time focusing on how collaboration and partnerships might help. So welcome. Looking forward to learning with and from you.
Thank you.
Alex.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. This is also my first fully online class as well, so feeling some of those similar nerves to many of you. I am in my last year as a master's student in the Education Policy and Leadership program. I have a background in admissions. I also have a background in corporate training as well. My interests really just sort of align with access to quality education and how we really miss the mark in a lot of areas with that. My personal experience with education, it's always been such a constant in my life, and fortunate enough it provided me a lot of opportunity. So I want to give that to as many people as possible. So I hope to wind up on the policy side of education. And this class, I wanted to take the seminar because at the end of last semester, I was sort of feeling a little, not frustrated, but we focused so much on analyzing what is wrong and some of those roots. And I was feeling inspired when I read the course description of this seminar about theories of change and action and being able to take that and really apply it to education policy. So I'm excited to learn from everyone.
Good, welcome. And we'll hope that we don't disappoint. I don't think we will. Maria.
Hi, everybody. Albany has been my second home for many, many years. I will not say how many because it just reminds me how delayed I have been in my dissertation. I am originally from Pakistan. I came here on a Fulbright scholarship to do my master's, and then I stayed for my PhD. Currently, I'm working on the last chapter of my dissertation. I have a special interest in comparative and international education, but I've been working with the new center, the System Center, which is housed at the School of Education, and most of our work is informed by improvement science. It is HAL and the theories of action and the theories of change, which we will be talking about in this course, that bring me here to help. I want to learn more about how they can inform the organizational behaviors, organizational actions, plans, and the principles of improvement that we actually talk about. So I just want to learn more with you about the implementation side of it.
Good, welcome. Is that everybody?
I think so.
Okay, good. So let's maybe take 5 minutes so that folks can stand and stretch for a second. Will that work for everyone?
Sure.
Or do you want to just roll through? You know, I'm pretty tough, so if you want to just keep rolling, we'll roll. Anyone need a break?
Nope.
Oh, Spartan, I love it. So let's move forward into the specifics of the course, so you can decide if you want to stay. And I'm probably going to need some help from Rebecca in finding a PowerPoint in a moment or two. I'm in the share area, but I can't find my PowerPoint, boss.
What you can do is go to the share green button and then just click desktop on the top left once it opens up, and then click on the bottom right hand corner. I think it's share, the button share, And then you'll have access to pull up anything you need on your desktop. There you go. Perfect.
Good.
So if you have if you have your PowerPoint open at the bottom or on or one of the tabs, you can just open that right up, or wherever it is on your computer.
Look at that.
Perfect. You're an expert already.
Yeah, right. Before I treat you to what some people call death by PowerPoint, let's start with a very basic commitment that I have. I'm old school on the ethical responsibilities of professors and frankly all teachers with regard to your knowledge that you are my top priority, both individually and collectively. I firmly believe that I need to be on call to you in service of your learning and development. And I don't want you to ever feel at all reticent to ask for a personalized Zoom conference, a phone call, additional assistance in completing an assignment, questions that you have about a reading and where those ideas in the reading may take you and relate to your career. I am genuinely yours over the course of the semester. And I believe that unless folks who are in this seminar who have had me before tell you differently, that they'll tell you that that's kind of how I roll. And I know it's sort of at odds with a research university environment. It's where professors are frankly facing work intensification. There's no question about that. It's at odds with the idea that graduate education ought to be predicated on people who are independent learners and self-starters. But so much of what I've learned how to do, and so much of what I actually love about teaching and learning, involves personalized interactions with people in response to their goals and needs and aspirations. So feel free to ask for additional assistance and additional time. And we can do that online. For those of you who are in the Albany area, I'll be in Albany for a limited time this year, most of the month of October, and then for a week or so in December. I'm currently on the West Coast, and will continue to be here for several of our classes, sometimes for work and sometimes for play. I'm doing my best to learn how to slow down, and my wife and my family will tell you that I'm failing miserably. But at least I can find opportunities in a fresh geography where I'm not necessarily feeling obligated to come to the university office in exchange for some conditions that allow me to do some of the writing that I want and need to do, and some of that writing relates to our seminar. So one last time, I'm here to serve you. So let's walk you through this brand new seminar that I constructed specifically for the EPL program, the ETAP program, and also a particular credentialing program that is still in the formative stages, focused on improvement science. What I bring to this credentialing program in improvement science, and also what you'll experience in this seminar, is a rather unique combination of what some folks would consider to be specialized areas of study, all brought together in a new package. If you will, some of what you're going to experience is a first-time journey for all of us, myself included in some ways, of cobbling together some areas of specialization that together bring, that offer immense practical opportunities for each and every one of us. Of that, I'm confident. Whether I can offer it to you in the most effective ways is an entirely different question. But as you'll quickly learn, I expect you to co-construct the learning experience and be held and be prepared to hold yourselves jointly accountable for what you learn and also what we're able to accomplish together. This complicated title gives you some idea about the chunks of knowledge that are brought together in the seminar. Theories of change, sometimes called theories of action, represent an identifiable area of study that has immense practical application, where the idea of research and practice are integrated or intertwined, and in a timely way, as all of us, no matter what sector we work in, are asked to demonstrate that we are relying on and implementing theoretically sound and evidence-based practices. The idea of a theory of change provides an umbrella for that idea. And so immediately it should appeal to you in terms of whatever work that you do, to begin to think through how what you know to be growing requirements in your job, either your present one or your future one, may be married to this idea of theories of change and practical import. Action science derives from the pioneering work of an eminent social psychologist who's known as, quote, the father of social psychology. His name is Kurt Lewin. And Lewin claimed that the best way to understand any phenomenon is by trying to change it in its naturally occurring context. The best way to understand any phenomenon is by trying to change it in its naturally occurring context. So when Alex says she's now ready for some action, that's precisely what Lewin would have advocated. And indeed, Lewin and others went so far as to say that while there's a lot to be gained from social analysis, where investigators are impartial and distanced and try not to intrude themselves into the whole process, that the name of the game is actually trying to change things that we know are providing suboptimal results and creating suboptimal conditions. And so part of what an action scientist learns how to do is to assess and develop and change suboptimal circumstances and particularly organizational designs in service of achieving better outcomes and avoiding unintended side effects. Improvement science, drawing on the last word in the title slide, is, if you allow me to say so, as I've experienced it, and I'll tell you more about it, is reformist in its orientation. As the idea of improvement would suggest, that you're looking at an existing organizational structure, an existing set of policies, an existing set of practices, an existing set of behaviors, and you're trying, and the question is not how do we start all over again, but how do we make them different and better? That's the idea of improvement. And with the assumption that there is something or someone that is suboptimal along the way. And so the idea of improvement and improvement science is inherently reformist. It's the less, it is compared to bold innovation and what I will introduce in a moment ago, design science, it is less revolutionary. And who among us would not honor the importance of improvement? If, on the other hand, you say that the 21st century is it presents conditions and also opportunities, and maybe even requires bold innovations, that we're not just reforming programs and organizations and policies, we're transforming them. Because the conditions that surround us are so novel, complicated, and even vexing that that nothing short of efforts that are directed toward new institutional designs is what we ought to be thinking about, and that has profound implications for how we think about organizations, leadership for organizations, and also research and development. So note that they're together. It's not one or the other. It's innovation and improvement. And with the assumption that, that the work is inherently nuanced, that the particularities of people, organizations, communities, nations, and international contexts matter. And that consistent with what many analysts have indicated, the 21st century marks the beginning of the end of one size fits all. So our seminar is really a hybrid in at least three ways. Many of you have learned and even polished. You're experts in the role of student. And we all know what a student does in a course. The student figures out what the game is, what the answers are that the professor wants, and by and large, the main mechanism for the interaction might be called training. It's also called instruction. It's also called pedagogy. And we'll make no bones about it. Training, instruction, and sort of the idea that the professor knows what all the participants in the class need to know certainly has some validity. But a formal course is also packaged, usually around textbooks. And textbooks are really about providing answers. There's a certainty and predictability that goes along with them. A seminar operates off a different set of assumptions. A seminar operates off the assumption that the questions we ask and the questions we take away and the frameworks that we provide oftentimes are the most important learning outcomes from the experience. A seminar, particularly in graduate education, is assumed to be at the frontiers of knowledge. And in that fundamental way begins to map the territory of what we need to know and why we need to know it, and how the questions that we've been asking may not be the best questions to get us there. And if you think about what each of you has said about yourselves, I listened intently for this and selectively, each of you is in some ways a pioneer. And if you aren't already, you have aspirations to do that. And so a seminar format is actually ideal for some of what you need to be able to do. You need to explore which questions you want to address, how you want to frame them, alternative ways to reframe them, and you need the genuine freedom to be able to pursue them, albeit in a structured environment, so that your learning is scaffolded and you're able to move in appropriate directions. So the ideal relationship, obviously, is that it's difficult to play advanced games like seminars if you don't have the co-requisite skills and especially language and frameworks. And so part of what we'll do in the course aspect is to give you language and frameworks and the opportunities to play with them. But then once you've had a chance to gain some sense of competence, even some sense of mastery over them, then it becomes like jazz. And then we take on the elements of a seminar. And we kind of use the old Star Trek metaphor, where we go where maybe no person has gone before, and in quite the way that you will take us there. And with the assumption that you're in the driver's seat. Empowerment is an overused concept, but I genuinely, and I know Rebecca feels the same way, I genuinely want you to feel empowered. Don't want you to be afraid of raising the difficult question. I don't want you to be afraid to question the professor. Because in the end, I'm accountable to you. You are, after all, paying for the experience, and I'm getting paid for it. But beyond that, I'm deeply committed to the pioneering work that each and every one of you is interested in. The idea of a theory of change can be framed in a very simple question. You want to get to better outcomes? How are you going to get from here to there? If you like analogies, a theory of change is like a map and a compass. If you will, it's a navigational system. We have a boat, and one of the reasons that I'm out here is that I get to change a little bit of, spend a little time on the boat. And when we first got the boat, we had an antiquated navigation system, and in fact, we operated on the basis of paper charts. I'm lucky to be alive. We got in some harrowing situations. Today I have a digitally driven chart plotter that almost shows every molecule on my left hand if I want to focus it in that far. And I'm able to know exactly where I want to go and exactly how I'm going to get there. In so many ways, that idea of navigation with a map and a compass is a key part of the theory of change. And the whole idea of a theory of change, sometimes called a theory of action, is now spreading like wildfire throughout private sector and public sector organizations. And it's not unusual for you to be asked as a leader, yeah, what's your theory of change? And if nothing else, at the end of the first unit of the seminar, you'll be prone to ask people, insofar as it's safe, oh, you want us to do this, that, and the other? What's the theory of change? And if you're like me, you'll be struck by the fact that we do lots of things. We have lots of tasks and lots of goals, but no overlay for how it is we're going to get from here to there and achieve all of the desirable things and avoid some of the unfortunate and even unintended consequences. Action science stems from Lewin, and you'll have a really in-depth experience with it. I will guarantee you, if you've not encountered it before, and if you've ever worked in an organization that has some suboptimal working conditions, action science is going to hook you. Let's just ask this at this point in time. You can do it by raising a hand. Any of you work in an organizational setting, or have you worked in an organizational setting where you weren't entirely happy or pleased with how things were, how work was done, and how the rules and norms were there? Anyone? Oh, if action science is just gonna grab you in ways that will actually excite you, because it will help to explain and provide a framework for what you've experienced. It will also be proactive in helping us begin to think through then what you do to avoid the kind of stuff that happens or has happened to all of us in service of idealized relationships. The main idea here is that if you want to create justifiable and effective theories of change, then you need to have co-requisite and prerequisite organizational conditions for those things to be able to happen. And then last but not least, for the hybrid side of it, we're going to be talking a lot about the art and science of design alongside the the values of improvement science and the 6 core principles. For those of you who have not encountered improvement science before, there are more websites now online than I could have ever imagined. The simplest way is just go to the content folder in Blackboard, and you'll find the 6 core defining improvement science principles listed in a folder there. And you can have a look at it and say, and give some thought as to how those things might come together and what they may mean for you as you put a retrospective view on all that you've experienced, but then a prospective view on what leadership might mean and entail. So you know that the Improvement Science Program and the credential were the initial stimulus for this thing. I've been very interested and have been to the National Improvement Science Summits, have presented at the National Improvement Science Summits, but I've been especially interested in professional education and practice as founded on and propelled by improvement science. I can't remember who said it, perhaps it was Alex, that programs at the University at Albany, at least in the School of Education, are heavily oriented toward social analysis. We study things. But if you ask the question, what should we do differently and better on Monday morning, there aren't very many answers. Because research and practice are in some ways divorced. In part because many of the professors have never practiced, other than the practice of research and the teaching that they do in universities. So one of my enduring interests over the 50-year period that I've spent is trying to think about how we can develop useful knowledge for policy and practice, and what that means for the roles of universities and what it means in terms of pre-service education. And this seminar is one set of responses to that question. How can the universities of the day be involved in the production of useful knowledge for policy and practice? And what does that mean for the preparation of leaders like you, the next generation, who needs to be involved in institutional redesign and not just organizational improvement? The foundational course for Improvement Science Credential is a course in ETAP that has been offered by Dr. Kristen Wilcox, with whom I work routinely. And to reiterate, the 6 improvement science principles are in the BBLS content folder. Insofar as you are interested in really building on improvement science background, and some of you are, that's why you're here, it's always useful to return to them, and not just once. And to also do the rest of us a favor. Bring the improvement science principles back into our discussion. In other words, instead of waiting for me to make the application, you make it. And use it as a way for us to begin to gain greater understanding of not only what we're covering at the time, but also how improvement science can be enhanced and even understood better as we begin to do that. So I thought this would be, at this point in my career, I needed something to be refreshed and renewed. And I've been doing a lot of other work on the social determinants of health and well-being disparities, with considerable interest on how vulnerable people, particularly vulnerable people of color, are increasingly concentrated in particular areas of cities and inner-ring suburbs and rural areas. And trying to think through how we can do a much better job of understanding their experiences and also using them, those experiences, ways to enrich and enhance research and practice domains. And Megan, with special interest in how these are the issues that universities around the world are dealing with. with regard to what knowledge matters most and the extent to which policy resources invested in higher education are also resources that are invested in the problems of the day. The examples that I've introduced already are prominent in the experience we're going to have. And it's important for you to know that one of the things you get with a tribal elder, 50 years of experience, not 50 years of the same experience, is different situations and opportunities to work with one of them or two of them. I couldn't have done what you will be able to do at the end of the seminar even 15 years ago. So part of if the proof is in the pudding, we'll see if you're able to see to develop a new gestalt from this that is useful for you overall, but also ones in which you can personalize them in very very profound ways. One of the principles of improvement science is improve through network communities of practice. That's what our seminar is. We're going to learn together. And one of the things that we'll emphasize throughout the seminar is that for the development of theories of change and for the development of new organizational designs, there are co-requisite and antecedent conditions that need to be in place. Among those is that we craft together a special social setting with some clear norms for how we're going to treat each other and how we're going to proceed. And part of what I hope to accomplish with you this evening with Rebecca's facilitation is to get you comfortable with the idea that you are genuinely empowered, that I'm absolutely authentic and sincere when I say we're going to level the playing field and learn and interact together, not at the expense of the expertise that I bring as a senior tribal member, but also with due recognition that each of you has expertise and needs to feel genuinely comfortable and empowered, even in a digital learning framework that is new for all of us. If you don't trust in me and we don't trust in each other, we're not going very far. If you don't develop the courage to communicate, whether in threaded discussions online or when we're face-to-face like this, we're going to fall short of what we need to accomplish. So it's really important that you accept at face value, even trust in me at this point in time, that when I say that in a seminar, everyone is a teacher and everyone is a learner, I mean it. And in fact, it is the most addictive part of higher education teaching and learning for me is that I continue to learn as I interact with talented colleagues like you. And our seminar will be very special. It will sing. We will move forward in harmony as we not only play musical scores, but develop new ones to the extent that you take that at face value and help us make it happen. There's no such thing as an inappropriate or a stupid question. They're only questions. Everyone develops everyone's question merits our attention because invariably, a question that seems to be interesting and even unique will take us down some pathways that we wouldn't go down otherwise. The idea of social contagion effects is that good news and learning travels quickly. And that includes the enthusiasm for learning together. and particularly the extent to which some of you may develop very special relationships as you learn about shared interests and you pursue things on the side. That it's happened countless times in the seminars that I've been associated with. And I'm hopeful that it will happen again here. And based on what I know about some of you on the basis of prior interactions, I'm confident it will. The idea of free riding is you take all the benefits, but you don't contribute. We don't free ride in a seminar like this one. So instead of my saying, come on, you need to step up, know at the front end, my expectations for you are high, and I look forward to all that you're able to provide. Consistent with the seminar, where questions are as important as any answers, the best features of not just seminars, but the action science and theory of change work that we're going to do is based on a very important distinction between dialogue and debate. Debate is based on I'm right, you're wrong sorts of frameworks. Dialogue is genuinely educative and requires empathy. We want to really understand what the other person has in mind. And that requires empathic, genuine listening, as well as some authenticity in listening what the other person has to say. If your experience is anything like mine, whether as a consultant or as a participant, indeed, it even happens at the University at Albany. My colleagues want to debate things with an I'm right, you're wrong sort of pervasive attitude, instead of just spending the time asking the question, how might I understand your point of view? What might I learn from it? And using questions to probe deeper in service of mutual learning and performance. Particularly, one of the things that I think goes along with leadership in the 21st century is the ability and indeed the power to ask good questions. Generative questions give rise to other questions. Generative questions inspire other people to get involved and to act in ways that would not be as likely otherwise. An example of a generative question is the one that I draw from the 20th century management guru, whose name was Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker wrote numerous things that remain, in my view, brilliant. And among his treatises was Perspective on Leadership for the Future. And what Drucker said stuck with me from the time I first heard it on a YouTube interview in the 1990s. He said, before you can get to the future, you have to look at what it is you brought with you. And ask yourself this generative question. Look at anything that's around you in your organization and ask about each and every one of those things. If we hadn't inherited it, would we do it this way? It's a profound question. Think about the organizations that you work in now. If we hadn't inherited it, would we do it this way? Other questions follow. You can take that question generally to specific aspects of the organization, how work roles are set out, the missions and goals for the organization. Invariably are residual. They're brought from some time in the past. If we hadn't inherited it, would we do it this way? And he argued that meaningful organizational learning and planning begin with that question. And that if you don't ask that question and rid yourself of the things that are residual, your hopes of creating a different and desirable future are going to be dashed against the rocks, because you're going to bring the past into the present and then the last into the future. So, as indicated before, it's a way to think about how improvement, a reformist strategy, yes, we've inherited it, and yes, we do it this way, also paves the way for new institutional designs. No, we're not going to continue to do this. We're going to do that instead. And we're going to need a theory of change in order to help us begin to do the new things and fold in the things that we've had before. So for my view, this means a dual knowledge system. Most of what you've encountered at the University of Albany and other institutions is primarily a research to practice framework. What improvement science brings is a practice to research framework, where problems of practice become central to the concerns that we have for generating knowledge. So if you've looked at the syllabus, and I'm sure you have, there are 4 main clusters. We're going to deal with theories of change. We're starting with that. Then moving to the theory of action perspective with Lewin and action science. Then we're going to say, well, how do you join them? And what does leadership look like for them? And then moving toward the idea that we're in new institutional designs, particularly where we're crossing boundaries and bridging them. For example, universities and schools and child welfare agencies and mental health agencies and health agencies are all working together in some way, shape, or form. And around the world, that's happening. The United States isn't the only place that has an opioid epidemic, depression, problems with school and partner violence, and a host of other things that co-occur and interlock and require new kinds of partnerships and collaborations. And so figuring out how we meld theories of change and developing ones that are much more singular is a key part of it. And then this final note on this slide is important because it goes back to the comment I made at the end of the trial chat when I said, hold me accountable. The syllabus has learning outcomes, not course objectives. I failed you, and perhaps you haven't done your part if at the end of the semester you can't look at every one of those learning outcomes and say, got that, got that, got that, got that. That's my responsibility to you. And I'm accountable. At the end of the semester, you say, well, okay, I invested the money and the time, spent Tuesday evenings, kind of sounds like a TV show, Tuesday Evenings with Hal. You need to be able to say that there's been some value added and hold me accountable for that. We'll talk about the projects as we proceed. I'll try and provide some time for that next week. If you looked at them on the syllabus, you'll see that I've done everything I can to make them practical and personal. Actionable. And you also have some choices. Have a look at what it is that I'm asking you to do. And I assure you, I'm trying to have the course and the projects be an opportunity for you to go where you want to go, or perhaps even where you need to go in relation to your career or your current organization or your current education. And to allow you to make immediate meaning and see use values in what it is that we're covering. You know that we're going to use the Blackboard learning system. There will be one threaded discussion opportunity, and in fact, expectations every week. The first one's already up and ready for you. But the rest of the time, I want you to think about how what we're studying and what you're learning can be applied to the 2 projects. And with the idea that the 2 projects have some ecological and career validity for you. It either has immediate import for the job that you have now, or it'll serve you in some ways in the future. So I've wrestled with how to create something that would be integrative and practical and also rigorous. And with the reminder that this is the first time through the seminar, the choices that I've given you, particularly for the first one, And then the finalized one, I hope you'll see as immediately and directly applicable. I couldn't resist this. I was an old Western fan. But truly, you know, just as these folks were pioneers at a particular time in North America, so is leadership for new educational designs. And I think we will have accomplished a lot together if at the end of the semester you are re-inspired, or perhaps your inspirations are reaffirmed as you think about how so many of the things that go on in today's education world were really framed and developed for another time, for a different set of conditions, for people who had different orientations and characteristics. And if I ever needed a reminder of that, I have to tell you, I have 3 grandchildren, including 2 girls, one 14 and one 12. The 14-year-old just got a ring in her nose today. It's a different world. It's a different world. And the institutions that we did that we offer for young people, and actually people of all ages, need to be reconfigured and maybe even designed anew in order to do that. And we'll use theories of action and be guided by improvement science as gifted and talented leaders like you all pave the way. Questions, comments, concerns? Oh God, why did I elect this seminar? Rebecca, what did I forget?
Nothing. I think you're good.
All righty then. You know that you have free and open access to me anytime, anywhere. We'll be online next week at 4:30. I guess the other thing that I would suggest at this point is that while it may not be obvious, if you haven't looked at the syllabus, there are links on the syllabus to videos and so on. Those are not in the Blackboard content folders. So make sure you dance back and forth between the content folders and Blackboard, which are there by date, and also the syllabus. We'll look forward to getting started next week. And if you would, spend a little time on the first Blackboard post, because it will help to set a context for who we are as individuals, but also allow us to see some commonalities in what we bring as a prospective group and even a team. Okay, everyone?
Sounds good.
Okie doke. Nice meeting you all. Looking forward to learning with and from you.
Okay, take care now.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.